What's up guys, it's Kyle here at Laser Everything, and today we have a little bit of an unplanned project. You see, I have two of these little mini PCs, and I need them to have a little bit of a home. I'm a little limited on space if you couldn't tell, and I need to make use of every square inch of my desk. So I'm going to be building a little tower for these to sit into, so I can save on a little bit of desk space. I got my mini PC, I got my ruler. Yeah, let's dive in. We're going to be using boxes.pop because I need this to go fast. I could design a little shelf from scratch, but it takes time to do that. So I'm already seeing two things that are going to fit the bill for me here. And what I'm thinking is a single column with two shelves and a base. And I think I'm going to take this one and modify it. So tray layout, generate a type tray from a layout file. Already I can see that this is designed to basically fit into a drawer, and that means the height, the width, and the depth are going to be a little swapped around for us. I'm intending to use this upright, standing up on a desk. So I already know that this height is actually depth for me because it's the height of the opening if it were to be laying down. So for us, it's depth. So going over to my little image here, I know that my width is actually 130, and my depth, which is going to be left to right, it's going to be 130, and my back to front is actually my height, and that's going to be 100. Now, you have a little visual indicator down here that kind of shows you what the layout looks like. I'm going to change this, so I don't need 3 columns. Just need 1. Yeah, I think 3 is going to do good for this. So we have our top. It's going to keep our little mini PC from getting dusty. This one is going to be where our first PC is going to sit on, and this one will be our second. And then this bottom one here, you can modify to turn into legs to keep everything up off the tabletop a little bit, give it a little bit of breathing room, some free-flowing air. Next thing we need to do, outside dimensions. So we turn off outside dimensions, and that means all of the measurements we provided are inside dimensions. So that means if you're measuring, like in my case, this PC here, I'm using the external dimensions of that to fit inside this box. That means the opening needs to be able to fit it. So this is the smallest the opening can be. Well, this is a little bigger, but the width and the depth are essentially the smallest they can be without it not fitting. So we need to uncheck mark that. If you want to do it the other way around, just keep that in mind, but that's how that outside dimension box works. So thickness, this is the next one. We need to keep our thickness in mind for the wood or whatever you're cutting your box or tray or whatever out of, because it's going to affect these joints. So if we scroll down to this photo, you'll see that these fit in to the slots here in the end. Well, those little finger tabs are cut out, and if you don't put the proper depth in, if you say it's too deep or you say it's too shallow, the fingers are either going to stick out or not stick in far enough to hold the box together. So you really want to get this spot on. Don't take the lumber or the thickness dimensions from the store. Just take a caliper and measure it. Just because something fits into a classification of wood does not mean that's its true thickness. So for example, I have 1/4 inch plywood here that I'll be using for this, but it's not a 1/4 inch. It's more like 1/5 of an inch instead of 1/4. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So 5.4, this is common wood that I use for a lot of cutouts like this. Format, I'll be using SVG, but you could swap to DXF, you could use G-code, you could use LightBurn 2. You could use whatever you want. I just use SVG because either way, it's going to work. If you have specific needs or use cases, you can absolutely change that. So what I like to do is I like to hit generate. It's going to open another tab, and this is what we're looking at. Let me scroll out, and you can see the whole design. If you weren't sure the cutouts are going to be exactly what you wanted and in the right dimensions that you wanted, this is like a good way to get a ballpark idea of what it looks like. And I especially like to include this little check down here, 100 millimeter block, just so I can confirm when I get it into LightBurn that it is indeed scaled properly. So this is what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. We're going to go back, and we're back in boxes.py. And instead of hitting generate, I'm going to hit download. And you can see it's downloaded. Now that it's downloaded, I'm going to go ahead and open up LightBurn, and I'm going to open up my downloads, and I'm going to drag this into LightBurn. So here's our design file. I took some photos. Here's the first one, and this is of the bottom. This red line right here across the bottom, that is exactly 1 centimeter in from the front edge. So this is the front, and behind this fan back here is the back. And I want to open up a box here essentially for breathing space for the fan on the bottom. Kind of sucks in like a laptop. So we have 65 millimeters deep from the front and 80 millimeters wide, set back 1 centimeter from the front. So let's get rid of that. What we're going to do, we have our little 100 millimeter block here I was telling you about, and our width is 100 millimeters as it should be. So with that verified, we don't have to worry about scale. And these are our bottoms or segments essentially. And these are our sides, and this is our center piece from standing up. So before we get too crazy, let's go ahead and grab all this. We're going to group it so that our cutouts don't move around. And I'm going to hit the decimal key on the keypad, and that's going to rotate 90 degrees. So we got our right side here, and I'm going to do the same thing with all of this. Grab from the right to the left, group it. We're going to hit the decimal, and we're going to drag it up here. And we'll bring this in just a little bit more. And I'm going to highlight all 3 of these, and we're going to bottom align them and drag them over here. When we go to deal with anything with this later, we're starting off with everything on the same base point, make it easier to modify later. Back to our PC floors. 65 deep by 80 wide. And we're going to bring it up to the top here. So I'm going to first grab this and then shift and highlight their main box, and we're going to top align. And now we're going to center it. So now it's true center. So I'm going to go into LightBurn general settings, and down here, shape move increments, control arrow. So if you hold control and hit an arrow key, it'll move 1 millimeter or 1 unit, and we're in millimeters here. If I just hit the arrow key, it's going to move 5 millimeters and some change. And if I hold shift arrow, it's going to move 10 millimeters. And since I want this offset 10 millimeters from the front, I'm going to hold shift and hit the down arrow. And we are now exactly 10 millimeters from that front edge. So this is going to get cut out when this piece gets cut out, and this is our little breather hole. Each of these is going to fit 1 across the bottom and 1 across these blue cutouts each, and then 1 on the end. So these are all identical. And since we have 2 computers, and one's going to be sitting here across this first blue area, and the second is going to be sitting here, and we have a top one that's going to keep the dust off that isn't cut out, we don't need this bottom one. So I can actually get rid of this one, and I'm just going to delete it and duplicate it. So now we have 2 identical pieces, and I'm actually going to group each of these so that our cutout doesn't get shifted around inside if we move this around later. So these are all of the smaller pieces we need. Now we just need to worry about modifying this. We have air coming in now. Now we want to be able to get air out. We have another photo here, and this is the back view of the mini PC. So we want to be able to get to all these ports, and we also want to make sure that the fan is able to push through the heatsink here and push air out the back. We have 8 millimeters from the bottom, from the base of the little nubs here for the spacers, up to where we want to make sure we're clear so that the heat can actually escape and not get trapped. And we have measurements from each edge, and we have a total width. So our total width is 127 millimeters, and we actually used 130. So we have a little bit of breathing room just to make sure we don't have a problem getting it in and out. And we want to go 10 millimeters in from each edge, and that way it doesn't slip out the back or anything like that. We're looking at 110 millimeters width for the cutout and 8 up from the bottom, and our total height is actually about 50 millimeters. So we don't have to go all the way up 50 millimeters, but I'm going to. And what we want to do is start with a box, a width of 110 and a height of, let's do 45 and make sure that we're roughly 8 millimeters away from the bottom. We want to make sure we're on the panel that's going to be facing the back, which is this one, because this is the center. We're going to go ahead and roughly align it here. It doesn't have to be exact. So right now it's in line with roughly where the floor is going to be. I'm going to take this and this, and we're going to center align it. I'm going to use the arrow key once going up, and then I'm going to hold Control and go arrow key 1, 2, 3. And now we're roughly 8 millimeters up from the floor. Now this is our rear cutout, so this is great for breathing. Let's go ahead and make it taller. Here's another tip. When you're making adjustments, you can use an anchoring point. So in this case, I don't want it to move from this bottom edge because we have it aligned where we want it to be, 8 millimeters up from the floor. So I'm going to set the anchor point to center bottom. That way this bottom axis doesn't move along the box. I'm going to make this 55 millimeters, and you'll see that the top line of the box shifts up, but the bottom line does not. So if you're ever designing something and you need to adjust that way, go ahead. Typically what I do is I leave it centered by default so everything moves out evenly from the center, but sometimes you have to shift it so you get what you need to out of it. So this cutout is exactly where we need it to be, but looking at the sides of this mini PC, it actually has exhaust ports on the left and right as well. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this box. We're going to throw one over here. I don't need it to be as wide, and I want to make sure I have enough structure here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this box and the outer box, and I'm going to center it once again. And I'm actually going to make it smaller. And we're back to center. We're changing the width, and instead of 110, we're going to go with 90. And this is just going to give us a little bit more rigidity in the enclosure. Now, we need to do the same thing for this level. So we're roughly aligned there with the floor. 5, and then Control is 1, 2, 3, makes 8. So this is in position where we need it to be. And we're going to just duplicate this and do the same thing. We're going to center it. 5, 1, 2, 3. And now it's aligned where we want it. Now we just need to worry about this side. So rather than do all these changes, we're just going to duplicate that side. And I'm going to group it, and then I'm going to duplicate it and mirror it. And we'll have our other side. Before I do that, I actually don't need this bottom section here. I just want there to be some basic feet here. So I'm just going to get an idea of how tall this is. I'm going to use the ruler tool here. All right, so right about there, we're at 45. So I'm going to use this as our cutoff point right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the box tool, and I'm going to take advantage of our snap feature. So when you use the mouse and you mouse over a segment, when you get the crosshairs here, you know you're on the corner. I'm going to go a little high. I'm going to go just above the edge here, and I'm going to go like this. And it doesn't need to be perfect. We're just using it as a starting point. I now have a box. If I zoom really far in here, it's cutting off this whole segment, and that's okay. That's what I want. I'm actually going to make this wider than it needs to be. I'm going to make sure that I'm fully encapsulating the bottom because I'm going to remove it. Because I aligned all 3 of these, I used the bottom align feature. I'm going to take this box, I'm going to duplicate it a couple of times across here, and I'm going to use it the same way across each of these. The order here matters. I take this and I want to subtract this from it. We're going to do that. And this is now the piece we want removed. And it turned blue because of this fill. That's fine. We can just set it back to black. They're all going to be a cut layer anyway. It doesn't really matter. When I highlight this, you'll notice we actually have a line break here, which means it's not recognizing this as a enclosed shape. Because this isn't an enclosed shape, it won't let us subtract this. I'm going to hit modify node, and we're going to have to ungroup. And what I'm going to be doing is inserting a node point right there and right here. And those are going to be where we connect later. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these. We can't delete it there. We're going to have to modify this once again. Get rid of those. When you're modifying and you need to remove nodes, remember to use D instead of delete. All right. Now we can close this up. Remember to use those crosshairs because now you have a confirmed connected point. Now what I could do, you'll notice when I highlight this, it's just connected to parts of segments. I could go and correct this. There's really not much of a point to. They're going to cut out just fine. So I'm kind of picking and choosing my battles here in the favor of time. I'm okay with that. That'll cut and it'll do what it needs to do. We're going to delete this and mirror this side. So duplicate, and we're going to use our horizontal mirror, and I'm going to send it over this way. And you'll see that all the cutouts match up just fine. So we have all of our cutouts in the back and the sides the way we need them to be. We have all of our floors and everything. I'm using my birch ply, and this is just the conversion from quarter. This is the wrong value, but we're going to assign that. We're actually going to get rid of those fills so they're all in the same layer. We're going to get these aligned and sent over to the laser, and we'll come back when it's time to assemble. I'm just going to go ahead and move this out of the way, and we have our cutouts. So this is our first platform, our second platform, our top, our first side, our back, and our second side. Sometimes it's better to assemble it in a particular way so you don't get caught up in a mess. So I'm sticking these two pieces in the center in first. Then I'm going to do the sides after putting these in. And then the top piece has external access. I'm going to go ahead and glue this. (16-port gigabit TP-Link switch, the TLSG116, for if you just have too many network devices to plug in. It is all metal and it weighs a lot. Just got a simple little power plug here on the front and a little locking port and 16 ports of Ethernet goodness. I have a finished product on my desk. I apologize if you wanted to see the glue up process. I find it to be kind of boring. Nobody enjoys gluing stuff. If you're curious on the glue that I used, it is Gorilla Wood Glue. This is kind of my go-to. My close second to that would be Titebond. We get a lot of questions about how we work around different needs and making stuff work the way we need it to. It is a real life project, and I had needs and desires that I wanted to fulfill with it. If you have any troubles or questions with your projects that you're looking for help with, maybe leave a comment below and we'll try and do a follow-up project video to help you out. That's it for this one. If you enjoyed the content, check out the Laser Master Academy. It is the #1 way to support what we do. And if you're looking to talk to like-minded individuals, check out the Facebook and Discord. It is a great place to get help, ask questions, get answers, and help each other out. And we appreciate you watching. We couldn't do it without you. And we hope you have a beautiful afternoon. Take care, and we'll see you in the next.